and good morning to all of you. And some of the questions that we have heard, they are very pertinent and they are relevant to all the organizations. It is not that they are relevant to only those two organizations. Let me take you through my presentations. What I will do is that I will talk about the environment, what we do at Lloyd Group briefly, and what the CLO job definition is, and the CLO competences and the CLO roles, and how the future looks like. What are the couple of things we need to do, because I believe that the future is going to be different what we do today, because in my experience of 80s, 90s, 2000, I have seen the CLO role has changed, CLO qualifications have changed, and CLO perspective have changed, and the CEO perspective about the CLO function has also changed. We operate in an environment in Lloyd Group. We are highly diversified. We operate into an AC area. We are known for air conditioning, and we are also known for infrastructure. These are the two broad areas that we operate in. And then we have a couple of plants in Czech Republic. They are also part of the air conditioning. The business environment, when I talk about, it's more related to the internal organizational environment. When we have WICA, OCA, that will be talked about differently. And this is the environment business margins are under pressure, irrespective of the business in which you operate today. In India, the manpower cost and overrides are of international standards. Our salary structures are pretty good, let me admit that, in some of the organizations, and they're as good as the international standards, And the new thing that we are seeing is high aspirations of young workforce that's entering the workplace. More and more educated people are entering the workplace. That's the change that we have seen over a period of time. When we compare it with the 80s, 90s, and what's happening in 2010 and after 2010, you will find only educated people entering this space. And then this is resulting into the shortening of the career tenure for people. People are willing to move at a much faster pace, because in today, especially the Indian workforce is not looking at only India. They are open to poached by the global players. And this scenario really was not there in the 80s, 90s, and up to 2005. And beyond 2005, we have seen that a lot of Indian workforce, a lot of young Indians are willing to take a chance and go abroad. And you find that majority of them are settled in US, Australia, Singapore, etc., etc. So that's a clear indication that we do not operate with the same workforce what we used to operate with in the 90s and 80s. My assumption about this presentation is that the CLO means does organizations have workforce competencies. It needs to achieve its business goals today and tomorrow. So the entire presentation revolves around that. Basically, the CLO role changes from the size of the organization. If you are a large organization, then you have an independent CLO handling this function. If you are a medium-sized organization, then there is a middle-level guy who handles this function. Middle management level person handles this function. If you are a small organization, when I say small means about 1,500 to 2,000 crore business, then you have a CHO, that's Chief Human Resource Officer, wears the same hats. He wears the hats of a CLO as well as the CHRO, and then there are people down below, who handles the L&D function as part of the coordination activities. And then the CLO responsibility is primarily to champion programs that always answer these questions with a strategy, affirmatives. Which question is that? The one that we have seen earlier. This is the assumptions that do we have competencies, and CLO answer is that yes, we have competencies that we need in our people today and tomorrow. If we do not have, then what steps we need to do so that we have available competencies in place in the organization. That's the big challenge. Because CEO is concerned today is whether I have the right kind of people, because we believe that the people program everything in the organizations. And if you have right set of people, your organization will grow. If you do not have right set of people, your organization will remain a mediocre organization. So that's the entire thing revolves around looking after the people so that they become the programmer who drives the business to the newer heights. And then the key area that the CLO has to do is creating a learning culture. This is missing in some of the organizations, because when I say missing in the organizations, because today's competitive environment, the pressure is on generating business. Okay, when I say generating business, the CEO in the business is more concerned about the numbers. That's the top line and the bottom line. As long as these two areas are met, the rest of the things take a backseat. If these two areas are not met, then really, there is a question mark in the business. So the CMO has to ensure that there is a learning culture. If there is a learning culture gets developed, stabilized, and established, then I personally feel you do not feel the punch of, that people are not nominating themselves for the training programs, or people are running away from the training programs, or the CEO is asking a question, what next? Because these questions are raised generally when the CEO himself is not aware of that what kind of competencies his business will require from the people to take it to the next level. Okay, if the CEO is very clear that these are the competencies I need today and these are the competencies I will require tomorrow, then I need to prepare people to handle those functions in that format. Let me give an example of it. SAP. Okay, SAP was not available in India before 2000. If it was a few companies. But today, every company is on SAP. So that means what it means that within the organizations, the competencies to handle the SAP function has to get created. And when you install a SAP within the organization, then at the same time you have to create a culture of the transparency. Now these things have to handle parallelly, and that's where the role of a CLO comes in. Like, do we have SAP? Do we have people who understand SAP? Do we have that kind of a transparency within the organizations? Because in 80s, 90s, people were not aware of the turnover of the organizations. Today, you talk to each and every person right from the beyond level in the organization. He is fully aware of what's the turnover of the organization. That's the kind of transparency that has happened over a period of time in the Indian organizations. And that's where I say creating a learning organization. So, and creating a learning culture. That's the key responsibility. Before you install a learning function in the organizations, you have to work on this by creating a learning culture. Now, what these CLOs can do in the organization where they find that the people are not willing to come forward and attend the training programs, they have to, circulate to each and every employee the small, snippets on the learning, small things on the personality, small things on the, how they can develop, take to the newer heights, some kind of a links about the, the articles, some links about what's happening internationally in big organizations, organizations which have grown in last 10 years, 15 years, typically companies like Google, Apple, and Facebook. Okay, they were not there before 95. Okay, people were not aware about these companies before 95, but in the last 15 years, what these companies have done, that they have become so great, typically the telecom space and education space and the social media space. So once you share these links and create a learning willingness within the employees, then you really don't get those kind of questions that we are raising. And this is a very, very typical problems even I face in the organizations. But what you can do is that if you face these kind of problems, it is always to go to the top management. Okay, take the help of a chairman, take the help of a CEO. If you find that there are problems in handling this kind of issues of people are not coming forward for learning. Now, who can be an effective CLO? This is what I've talked about, that how this role has changed. Now, the CLO has to have a deep understanding of talent today. That's the complete talent process. Okay, how the guy comes into the organization, how it gets developed, and how he moves. And typically when we say it is the creating, design, development, and delivery within the organizations. And he should be able to understand the business challenges. Today, CLO has to have a complete understanding of the business. When I say business, that means he should have a very strong business acumen in terms of the competitors, in terms of the product, in terms of the people. So these are the three key drivers of the business, and he should be hands-on on these businesses. It should not happen that he has a lesser knowledge than the people who operates in the line functions. If he has the equivalent knowledge what the line function has about the business, then his respect is different, and what he says, then that gets accepted by the line people in the organizations. Typically, the CLO competencies that we feel is, in today's environment is leadership skills, of course, no doubt about it. When I say leadership skill means that not at a large scale, but within the organization, he should be able to lead himself, okay, to move around within the organizations with the line people, with the CEOs, with the business managers, because ultimately you exist for the line people. You don't exist for yourself, So how you develop a good interpersonal skills with the line people and give them newer ways of handling things which you have, then they will appreciate you. Unless and until you give them something new, they won't appreciate you. So therefore, that's where we say that leadership skills, and second is the general management skills. That means that you understand the entire gamut of business, how it operates. And knowledge management, as I said, that you have to have knowledge management tools in place, sharing of knowledge with the people, sending out the links, okay, being on the, online. So that's the another area. And then the learning methods, strategic thinking. I'll go a little fast because this is all very, very generic that we all know, interpersonal skills. This is what the area which I always say that if you want to be a successful CLO in the organization, you must have a very good interpersonal skills. You should be able to move up, sideways and downwards with equal amount of ease. That you should be comfortable talking to CEOs on the business. You should be comfortable talking to line managers with ease, and you should be able to convince, influence people who are below you in the organization. And some kind of a coaching skills are needed. And finally, the decision making and intellectual thinking, of course, they are the key attributes that a CLO needs to possess. Typically, the roles that a CLO plays in the organization is a business manager. He has to play the role of a business manager of learning. When I say business manager of learning, what it means is that how he is leading the learning function in the organization in terms of cost-effective ways, what is to be outsourced, what is to be run inside, what is to be, we have to have systems in place so which are cost effective, how to train internal trainers so which are cost effective. So it has to be run as an independent profit center. As long as you run it as an independent profit center and you show to the CEOs, yes, it is a profitable business in terms of knowledge, in terms of costs, and then you generate surpluses as independent functions, it will be accepted. So that's where I say the learning manager has to be first a business manager of the learning. And second is the understanding profiles of the manpower. We operate in an environment today where we have the organizations, baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y. So what it means that we operate in typically a multi-generational environment. So we need to understand how the baby boomers are trained, how the Gen X is trained, and how the Gen Y is trained, because all three will have a different learning requirements and learning styles. Because if you go to baby boomers, they will find it very difficult to have a computer-based learning. If you run a course where all the people have to work with the computers. But if you run the same course with the Gen Y, they will be very apt and they will be very handy, and they will respond at a much faster pace as compared to the baby boomers or the Gen X. So this is what I mean by understanding the profiles of the manpower in the organization and generating learning systems accordingly. And improving performance, that's the key role. The CLO has to ensure that the people who are operating in the organizations, their performance gets reflected in the business performance. So there is a connect between the people performance and the business performance. It will not happen that your people performance is great and the business performance is average. So it will happen that business performance is great at times, the people performance can be average, But it will not be the other way around, that the people performance is great and the business performance is not so great. So CLO has to ensure that there is a direct connect between the business performance and the employee performance, and then push design, development and delivery of performance tools in the organizations. Because only one thing gets rewarded in the organizations. Rather, two things gets rewarded in the organization. One is the performance, and second is your connections with people. Okay, these two gets rewarded. So you have to be a performer, and then you have to have a strong connections in the organizations. Then only they get rewarded in the organizations. And then global learning practices have to, CLA has to be always keep an eye what's happening globally, and then bring those best practices within the organizations and try and implement some of those things in a localized fashion in the organization based on the styles of the people who work in the organizations. You simply say, I can't say that this is happening in Facebook, this is happening in Google, let me do this in Lloyd, because Google, Facebook are social media companies, non-brick and mortar companies, whereas Lloyd is a brick and mortar company. So I'll have to, tweak that to, keep what Lloyd wants rather than simply transplanting what's happening in the other companies. That's where I say that we should be, CLO has to tweak things based on the requirements of the organization. Finally, the cohesive talent strategist, when I say he has to be cohesive talent strategist, what it means that he is responsible for the people right from the day one when they onboarding. He has to be ensure that the onboarding is great for the new guys. He has to ensure that the performance management systems are carried through systematically by ensuring career development and performance driven learning options that emerge out of the performance management and coaching and assessments for the leadership development in the organizations. That's where the cohesive talent strategist, that's the key role that he plays in the organization. And then the personal learning environment, that's the new thing, that's the future. If somebody says, what next, this is what the next is, when they say personal learning environments, because the companies will not have that kind of a money as well as the time to nominate people from time to time to attend the training programs outside the organization. So therefore, organizations will have to work around the systems. When we say technically what it means that integration of number of web technologies like blogs, wikis, Twitters, Facebook, social groups and communities. So a lot of learning is available online. So how you generate willingness in the people to go to these areas and learn newer and newer things. So, you really today don't have to go to your boss for asking you something which you do not know. Okay, you have to simply go to one of these blogs, or if you are part of some groups, you just type out the questions which you do not know, you will get the answer within 24 hours. So that's the point I'm saying. That's the big thing that's happening on the Indian business environment, which was not there in 80s and 90s. So that's a big shift. And this is what the observation I have is that, how do you ensure that learning is taking place in the organizations? I won't say large investments, but organizations that make investments in people typically have lower employee turnover, which is associated with higher customer satisfaction, which in turn is a driver of profitability. So this is how it gets happened here. It is not the automatic that I have trained people and then my bottom line should immediately grow. Never happens. So there is an element of employee satisfaction, there is an element of customer satisfaction, and then there is an element of repeat orders that you get based on the satisfaction that you provide to the customers, and then the surplus gets generated in the organization. So this is how this gets linked up with the learning. Fine, so I'll take a pause. Thank you.